All right, guys, welcome to the Parental Room. The Parental Room is a safe space for parents and anyone who think about becoming a parent to learn about tips, tricks, and anything that you vent or whatever it is you need. And welcome. Okay. Our guest today is Hasina. She is the CEO of Global Speech and
Rehab services.
Rehab Services. All right. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. How are
Great.
you?
I'm good, Howard. I'm good. I'm good. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. I know we've worked together before, promoting your business. It was just natural to have you here.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
honored to be here.
Okay. So let's dive right into it. So you are a mother, correct?
I am,
And a
yes,
mother of three. What are the ages again?
25, 22, and 20.
Gotcha. Okay. And how was that when you first found out that you were having your first child? How was that whole experience?
That was an interesting experience because I was really young
Hmm.
and I had my daughter at 19.
Okay.
And so I think at that age,
Hmm.
you don't really know what to think.
Hmm.
You just know you're going to be a mom and you just roll with the punches.
Right. Right. How was your support system at such a young age? How was your support system then?
Honestly, I had a really good support system. My
Hmm.
mom, my friends, everyone I did have a little village. I mean, my mom was really instrumental because I had my daughter at 19 and then I had my son at 22
Okay.
and I still wanted to go to college
Hmm.
and I wanted to do that, but it's really difficult and I was a single parent and it can be really difficult, but my mom actually, helped me all the way through undergrad and through grad school.
That's
So I
amazing.
really had an amazing support system and I know without her,
Hmm.
having a safe place to send your kids, I probably would not have been able to do it.
Right. And that's beautiful because I know that a lot of people when they like at a young age, when you have children at a young age, they kind of just give up on their dream, but you were able to like see your dreams through, and that's amazing.
Yeah, at some point I woke up one day and I said, wow, I have two children,
Hmm.
and I need to be able to take care of them.
Right.
So what am I going to do? I had started college and then I kind of dropped out.
Hmm.
And I said, I have these two mouths to feed. Like, I literally have to figure something out. And so I decided to just go back and not stop until I finished.
Right. Good. Great. Great. So how did you get into your business with speech and rehab services?
Well, I got into it because actually my son,
Hmm.
the middle one, when he was about 2, he wasn't talking.
Hmm.
And I had already had a child that was talking, and so I wasn't really sure why.
Hmm.
And I took him to the pediatrician. She did give me a story about boys and how they develop later than girls.
Hmm.
So give it some time. And if he still is not talking, then come back in 6 months.
Hmm.
6 months forward, still not really talking. We're talking about maybe 2.5, almost 3.
Hmm.
And then she referred us to early intervention, went to early intervention. He needs speech therapy.
Hmm.
And I said, oh, okay. Interestingly enough, I had never heard about speech therapy before. But once I found out that he needed it, I started doing a lot of research
Hmm.
and just really curious about what it is, what does that look like,
Hmm.
what the treatment is. And I thought the field was very cool at
Hmm.
that time.
Right.
So I said, oh wow, this would be a good job for me.
Hmm.
I could work in a hospital, I can work in a school, I can work with kids, I can work with adults.
Hmm.
And I just went wild, applied to grad school. And I was still in undergrad. Actually, I was finishing up. I had not even finished undergrad yet. So I found this prior to graduating, and then I took some prereqs, applied, and got accepted.
Okay. Great. Great. You said you thought it was cool then. Is it still cool now or?
You know what? It is beyond cool.
Oh, okay. Okay.
When I was going through grad school, I was like, yeah, you must have been insane,
Hmm.
to think that this was a good idea
Hmm.
because my son went through speech therapy. He graduated,
Hmm.
he finished, and I was still in grad school. And I was just like, what is happening here? So, but actually, I ended up getting into the field, starting the business, and it is more than cool. Not easy, but
Hmm.
it's amazing what we do every day.
Great, great, great. So, what would you say are some key identifiers for for a child that may need speech therapy?
Well, not talking is an early indicator,
Hmm.
and not just that, maybe seeing a child that is somewhat disconnected but not communicating, instead of asking for things, crying or pointing or falling out and throwing tantrums, those could be good indicators.
Right, because I remember my son used to actually, when he wanted something, he would just point here, or he'll point at his stomach like he's hungry. And
Okay.
he didn't speak, and he did that for a while until he was about 2.5, and then he started
Then he
speaking.
started.
Yeah.
Okay.
So okay, all right. So what advice would you give those who aren't parents and want to become parents for the first time?
That's an interesting question. I don't, even though I'm a mom of three, I still don't consider myself an expert. But I would just say be intentional in terms of what you want, what type of parent you want to be, and what type of child or human that you want to bring in, that you want to bring and grow up in this world. And, not defaulting to how you were raised and what your parents did, because while I feel that they had great intentions, it wasn't always right.
Right.
And so just really thinking about what you want for your child and what type of parent you want to be.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are some tips on how to help a child with speech therapy at home? So let's say if they come to they're enrolling your course or in your program, and what are there any tips or tricks that they can do at home to kind of help further and push things along, or is it
Yeah.
something that has its own pace?
Yes, it is. So in terms of kids that come to us for speech therapy, we create individualized plans. So when they come in, we kind of look at where they are, what they need in order to help them communicate. We kind of do a comprehensive look at the child to see what it is that they need, and we develop a plan. And based on that plan, we kind of individualize what you should do at home. So we'll give you specific instruction, do this, do that. And generally speaking, especially when we're talking about the younger ones, my go-to advice is to decrease or keep down the screen time, meaning the iPads, the tablets, the Coco Melon, the Miss Rachel.
Right.
And typically I would say no more than an hour a day,
Okay.
just because that screen time, although those things teach, they don't encourage communication. And so
Right.
it's kind of like a one-way thing, and it impacts children's communication skills. So I would say at home, when you have kids, just starting with the little ones, you want to get them toys. Even think about toys that, you may not think about, but they encourage critical thinking skills, like a little shape sorter, things that little kids have to figure out. So you want to think things that children have to engage with, bubbles, because they have to, come to you. It's an interaction thing, or even a shape sorter, any kind of toy that requires a child to do something, preferably ones that don't have batteries. And
Right.
when you think about, as children start to get older, you want to think of things that you can do with them as a family, or things that they can do themselves, but games, board games, Uno, Monopoly, things that require engagement from
Right.
another human.
Right. Right. Okay, that makes sense, because I do, now that you say it, I do see that the screen time is a one-way communication, because they're usually sitting there quietly watching it. So yeah, I can see how that can affect their speech. That's good. That's a gem. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and I know a lot of parents say, "Oh, well, they're learning their colors and numbers and shapes," and that's great. But when I, typically think about 1 and 2 year olds, they don't really have a use for letters and numbers. 1 year olds don't need to know how to read. They need to know how to communicate. They need to know how to follow directions. They need to know how to, wave high and bye, say hello. They need to
Right.
learn how to communicate. They don't need to know how to read.
That makes sense. Makes sense. I'm not asking a 1-year-old for instructions or directions. So
Correct.
okay. So why is speech therapy important?
Speech therapy is important for a number of reasons. Our goal, and when people think of speech, they say, people don't really know what we do. So let me just back up a little bit in terms of,
Okay.
what we do and how we help kids. We help with articulation skills. So if you have children that are older and they are not pronouncing words correctly, we can help to correct that. We also help with language skills. So how kids understand and how they use language and communication. They're stuttering for children people who may stutter. And so that's the realm of what we do in terms of working with pediatrics. The key with any intervention is that early intervention is key. And so the longer something goes on, the more difficult it can be to correct. And there's also a long-term impact for education. And so it does show that children who may have language disorders or who may have language difficulties will go on or may go on to have difficulty in school once they get to kinder. So the sooner the better.
Okay, that makes sense. That does make sense because you want to catch it early so that way they can improve, and then when they get to kindergarten, like you said, they transition a little bit better.
Correct.
That makes sense. Okay. How does speech that's not corrected affect the child in the long run?
Pretty much what we just talked about, difficulty at school. And then we help children who have difficulties in general, right? Because we really try to get to what the root of the issue is. And like I said, long-term effects are difficulty in school, not just with academics, but sometimes even with behaviors and transitions and, other things.
Like communicating with their peers and stuff like that.
Communicating with peers, communicating with their teachers, their caregivers, and even just thinking about toddlers, I know a lot of parents are always concerned about sending their toddlers to daycare because they want to send them when they can communicate and tell them if something happened, if something is wrong. And it does everyone has a right to communicate, right? And so even children, they have the right to communicate. And I think that the longer that any type of communication disorder or delay goes without being addressed, it can cause global issues in children.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, April is Autism Month. So what are some key identifiers or traits that would help a parent identify that if their kid is on the spectrum of autism?
Okay, so autism is, complicated, and there are not one or two things that you can identify, but there are some traits of autism that may, cue a parent in. I think the very first one is communication. Delayed communication skills could be a trait of autism, and not to say that kids with autism don't communicate, because some do, but that could be one of the first indicators. You also have some early things, some other traits that may not look like traits of autism. For example, you have kids that are 1 or 2 years old and they can read, or they know numbers and they know letters and they know colors. It's a great thing, but typically that is something that is a trait of autism. We also have sometimes, instead of, children asking you for things or pointing, they'll take your hand and they'll put your hand on the thing that they want and ask, that's their way of getting you to get it for them. So that also could be an early indicator.
Gotcha. Yeah, because my nephew he has autism as well, and he knows his dinosaurs though.
Oh.
Like he can name all the dinosaurs, and I can't even name them, but he can name them. So
me either, yes. And I think that's just another thing to point out, that autism doesn't have a look, or it doesn't have a it doesn't look like anything.
Right.
Autistic kids are smart, they're brilliant, they're amazing, and so some people will say, oh, my child can't be autistic because they're so smart, which autistic kids are smart.
Right. Yeah.
So that's definitely they are not mutually exclusive.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Okay. And just to wrap up, what tips or what tips or gift that you would leave our viewers just to, if they're becoming a parent or thinking about becoming a parent, or not a parent yet but thinking about it, like what tips would you give them to wrap it up?
As a parent, you want your kids to be successful. You want them to be good people. And I think, at least for me, that was my goal, to raise good people. And, whatever that looks like. And so, just be intentional. Think about what you need to do in order to get a good human being, modeling good behavior, spending time with your kids, and really just making sure that you're intentional with everything. And, again, we have things that our parents did that may not have been okay, but they were doing the best that they could at that time. And as parents, we're all doing the best that we can at any given moment. So that's just the reality of it. But just really think about what type of human you want. What type of person do you want to bring into this world, and model, those behaviors, and you be your child's first role model. I believe that children are what they see, you know, and they can be what they see. And children rarely ever do what you say.
Right.
They like to do what you do. And so I would say just, you know, think about that as you are raising kids or thinking about raising kids, and just really what, you know, my main thing is what type of person do you want to bring into this world?
Gotcha. I agree. I agree. Well, there you have it. This is the Parental Room. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And also, can you give the audience your business so they can,
Yes.
where they can find you?
Yeah, so we're Global Speech and Rehab Service. On Instagram, you can find us at Global Speech Rehab, Facebook, Global Speech and Rehab Services, and also our website.
Okay. And your location? You have an office?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. Our location, we're located at 520 Northwest 165th Street in Miami.
Thank you.
Thank you.